Yes, go ahead, take the roll.
Commissioner Adaro,
Here.
Commissioner Kasher, Commissioner Wasserman,
Present.
Commissioner Wynn,
Here.
Chair Remke.
Here. Okay, good morning. I just want to start the meeting off with some good news. Some of you have heard about this, but we are very excited after a lot of hard work from many people on staff. We have launched a new case management system for the Enforcement Division. This has been long overdue and has been a huge priority for us. Basically, it will just significantly increase the efficiency of the agency and minimize clerical and staff work on data entry, freeing up time to really focus on the substance of the cases. And that's just the case management part of it. We talked last week and launched the electronic complaint system as well. And that means that the public and the clerks can now directly file complaints on our website. And so that, again, is a huge advance for us. It will make things much more efficient. And so the complaint system and the case management system are completely integrated together. So there's no moving from one to the next. And as far as the complaint system it goes, again, it's an advance in several ways. Number one, people won't be able to file complaints unless it's an area within our jurisdiction. Right now, often people will file a complaint on paper. It'll be weeks by the time it gets to us, gets processed, only for them to later hear that it's not something that we cover. So this will be an immediate response in directing them to where their complaint should be filed. It also allows people to attach photos and other evidence directly to the complaint. Again, speeding up the process. It's also mobile friendly. So if you're on the road and you see a billboard and you don't think there's the proper disclosure, you can snap a picture, attach it to your complaint, and submit it directly, seamlessly. So in the week since the system has been up, we've already had 21 electronic referrals from the clerks in counties and 55 complaints. So it's working. People, I think, are as excited about it as we are. We've heard some really positive feedback already from the clerks, and we'll just continue to improve this. In the near future, once we've made sure everything's working as intended, we'll be adding function to this, which will include a public search for people to see the status of a complaint that has been filed. So again, lots of work went into this, and I would just like to thank all the staff in enforcement and admin and IT, obviously under Galina and Larissa and Dave Porter. But of course, and the fearless leader, Erin Peth, put a lot of time in this herself, especially in the home stretch, to make sure that this worked. So thanks to everyone. It's very exciting. Yes, please.
Yeah, I learned about this on an email from the FPPC, and I really want to thank and congratulate staff on this. This is really a big step forward, and I really appreciate it, especially in election year. It's a nice feature to have, so thank you very much.
Okay, so we will move to public comment. Is there any public comment this morning?
Good morning. My name is John Pinkney, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Slovak, Barron, Empey, Murphy, and Pinkney. I represent Mr. Frank Burgess. You have a closed session item 24 on your agenda today regarding Mr. Burgess. As you know, the commission pursued an enforcement action against Mr. Burgess. Court has since ruled that your enforcement action violated Mr. Burgess's rights under the United States and California constitutions. The judge that issued the ruling is one of the most respected judges in Southern California. Prior to taking the bench, he served as the senior appellate attorney for the 4th District Court of Appeals. The 4th District Court of Appeals filed over 400 opinions based on his legal analysis. This matter has been costly and emotionally exhausting for my 83-year-old client. I think that you will likely never know what you have put my client through at this stage in his life. Mr. Burgess was forced at great personal and emotional expense to defend against your violations of the highest and most sacred laws in the land. He challenged your actions not only for himself, but also to ensure that other similarly situated residents of California are not subjected to the same violations of state and federal law. Each of you raised your hand and you gave your word, you gave your oath on your honor to uphold the Constitution. I urge you to once again to honor your oath and to follow the very laws that you swore that you would protect and uphold when you were entrusted with the offices you now hold. As you're aware, Government Code Section 83111.5 specifically prohibits this commission from taking any action that denies an individual due process. When it comes to a case where there's a potential for violating an individual's constitutional rights, I urge you to err on the side of caution. Hold yourselves to a higher standard. Take no action that comes even close to a constitutional violation. The constitutional rights guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution are far more important than any single case. For those of you who violated Mr. Burgess's civil rights, you are personally liable. When you act in violation of the Constitution, you step outside the course and scope of your duties as commissioners, and you and your assets are personally exposed. My client has a civil rights damage claim against the commission members that violated his rights. Whether he pursues that claim depends largely on what the commission members do next. I urge you to take pause and proceed in compliance with all applicable laws, most importantly, at the state and federal constitutions. And I'm going to be leaving letters addressed to the individual board members with your staff. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the agenda items. And the first item is approval of the commission minutes. Are there any comments or questions from the commissioners first on the minutes?
Madam Chair, just a typographical correction on page 17 of the packet, which I think is, hold on a moment. And that was just Commissioner Odero's name. There was an extra.
Oh
letter
yeah,
at the
I
end,
see it.
an
Well,
N.
yeah. Okay.
That was really all I
That's
had to
page,
say about that.
yeah, that's page 7. Okay, with that change, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Odero, anything from you?
Nothing other than thank you, Commissioner Wasserman.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there a motion?
So I move approval of the minutes as amended.
A second that.
Commissioner Adero,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Okay, we'll move to the consent calendar items 3 through 21. Good morning, Ms. West.
Good morning.
Do the commissioners have any items they would like to pull from the consent to be voted on separately, not for questions or comments?
This is Commissioner Odero. If we could pull number 3.
Poll number, which number? I'm sorry.
3.
Okay,
Thank you.
3.
3.
Thank you.
All right, as far as the remaining consent calendar, I would just highlight number 4 and the Enforcement Division's pre-election efforts once again are shown here, which included the press release in advance so that there was corrective action, which obviously has been a focus this year, both in the primaries and the general. And I think that's definitely what we need to be focusing on. So I appreciate that work, and I just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. More of those to come.
Great. All right, any other questions or comments on the remaining items on the consent calendar? Is there a motion? Oh, I did. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Seeing none.
So I'd like to move approval of the consent calendar items 4 through 21.
Second,
Commissioner Adaro,
yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Rumke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Okay, we'll move to item 3 then. And Commissioner Odero, did you want to start?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a few questions, and it was my procedural mistake to move it off the calendar, the consent calendar, but so be it. I just need to understand a couple of things.
Can I just ask, are you, if perhaps you could speak a little bit louder? I'm just having a little bit of trouble hearing you. Is there anything we can do?
Is this better? I took it off my speaker.
A little better, yes, thank you.
Sure, sorry about that. So I actually have 3 specific questions. The first one is, so I see that there were 10 unique contributors and that they together somehow contributed in excess of $5,800. So my question is, how much is in excess of $5,800? What does that mean? And how much did each of these contributors contribute?
This is Galena West. Just to reiterate your question so everyone can hear, the question was for count 1, I believe, was $5,800 was contributions received in excess of that amount by the contributors specifically listed. And my answer is actually what the problem with these cases is. The allegation is that the money did not go through the campaign bank account. And the reason that that is such a fundamental part of the act is because in order to trace money accurately, we have to have it go through the campaign bank account. And in this case, those contributions did not. So we don't like to give an exact to the penny amount when we're dealing with records that are incomplete because of them not following the proper rules. So this was an unsophisticated group. It was a husband and his wife was the treasurer. And so we use words like in excess or approximately in order to narrow down the amount that we're talking about, even if we can't specifically pinpoint it down to the penny or don't feel comfortable that we have the complete records to do that.
But you feel like that's the range. It's
We
not.
do. We get it down to as close as we feel
Okay.
comfortable. So for us, $5,800 was the comfort level of we have a spreadsheet that we think is accurate, but we're not going to stake our reputations on it and put it on to the exact penny. So that's why we do that. And then we didn't list the amounts just because we didn't see it as pertinent information. So it's not in the terms of the settlement, but it would be on the amended disclosure statements that I don't have in front of me about how much was to each contributor.
Okay, but there's a record then of what each of the somewhere it can
Correct.
be found, correct?
Right. That's
Because
part of the
that was
disclosure.
part
And I
of
assume
the
that,
settlement was forcing him to do
you're-
his statements.
Right. So the disclosure of on the pre-elections, because as you can see, the third count was the pre-election statements had to be.
Yes, understood. And I assume that your answer to my next question, which is, what about the expenditures and how much in excess is the same? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So then my final question, if you could please clarify a little bit. You note in your memo that there is there was an aggravating circumstance of the closeness of the election. And I'm just wondering if you can expand a little bit as to what impact the closeness of the election had. In other words, I don't know if you have a table that says, if it's 1%, then we're going to consider it an aggravating factor, and based on that, we're going to reduce the penalty by X. I don't know how you address that and how you calculate the impact of that aggravating circumstance. And I just think it's very helpful, just like in the rest of your memo where you address the historically what we've done in similar types of cases, I'm just wondering, is there a historical case that you relied on, and what the parameters of that case were? I just think it's helpful for us, for me specifically, and also think for the regulated community to understand how you think this through.
Okay, and so as I understand the question, it's how much weight do we give to how close the election was? And it's one of the aggravating factors or mitigating factors. Obviously, if it's a landslide and this made no difference, then it's still a violation of the act, but it didn't have as much impact or public harm. So one of the factors that we have to take in consideration is public harm. So in doing that, this is one that we will list if it's close when we don't define close. But in local elections, the elections can be decided by a couple votes. And in those, we particularly look for violations that would cause the public to not have disclosure. Because for us, as we say over and over, like a broken record, disclosure is the key to try to get the information out as much as we can. So in this case, with it being 141 votes in a local election is the difference between winning and losing, that a committee that hasn't been filing and hasn't been giving the disclosure to the public could have swayed the election. We don't know for sure. It's all uncertainties. It's like reasonably foreseeable and conflicts. You're trying to guess what is reasonably foreseeable and get into a margin of error. So for us, we do it more mechanically, where we list it as mitigating, we list it as aggravating, and then we look at the Patty Lopez case, which is the one we used as a comp, and how close was that assembly race, and was that a factor taken in consideration? Not so much in that case. So when we list the factors, they're not identical in each case, but we try to use the comparable cases that had the most similar size of campaign and violations and amounts that were different in closeness of election, and all the things that we take into consideration that we list in the beginning of the conclusion sections. I hope that helps.
Right, and I kind of figured that the closer the election, the greater you would consider the aggravating harm, right? The aggravating factor.
Correct.
But I guess my question is, number one, thank you for confirming that. But my question also is, so what do you do with that? I mean, is there a table that you use? Is there something that says, 5% or greater? We're gonna reduce the penalty by X percent. I mean, what do you do with that? How do you mechanically get to the penalty number? How does this affect the penalty number?
Well, it's not about reducing a penalty. What it's about is trying to find the cases that are the most similar. So we use these more as factors as opposed to bright lines. So these are all, as they're listed in the regulation, they're factors to consider in a case. So what we do is we pile the factors on each side on mitigation and aggravation, and then try to find the cases that are the most similar to those factors that the commission has approved, and use that as a comparable. So it's more looking for comparable cases and comparable violations.
Because it's really impossible to have, or would be, I imagine, to have a chart, because factors are going to be so different in each case that the chart, I don't even know how you would devise a chart with.
Right. Well, and in a chart context, the way that works is with the streamline.
Yeah.
So the reason that we presented that as a memo to the commission was to have a bright line rule saying, okay, above 25,000, you don't get a streamline fine if your activity went above that. So then the commission approves the bright line rules, and then we present the factors as a compilation of each case and each violation in order to show that this plus this plus this, you've said very bad in the past. So we have a case that had that got a $4,000 fine or penalty. So less bright line, more factor.
Okay. Commissioner Najera,
Yeah,
anything
so
else from you?
Yeah, actually, yes. So I guess the question is, how do we guide the regulated community in terms of what their expectations should be? Are they, what guidance are we able to give them? I just, it just seems like very much kind of this looks like this case, and so they're supposed to find the similarities. Is that how I mean, maybe that's exactly how it works. I just need to understand that.
I guess I would say I'm going to jump in because I think this is similar to some other discussions we've had on the settlement process. And, you know, based on my 2 years here, at least, it seems to me that this is exactly what happens. The regulated community looks to pass cases, as does enforcement, and they argue this one's more similar to the lower fine, and the enforcement may argue, no, this is similar to the higher fine cases, and the negotiations continue until there's a meeting of the minds, which is consistent with the overall goals here from enforcement's point of view, and that's presented to us. So maybe Ms. West could provide a perfect answer, but to me that is, I think that there may not be the precision on a chart which can define how a settlement is reached.
Right. I think basically the advice we give to the regulated public is don't break the law, and this is my basic go-to rule. But generally, for guidance when it comes to fine amounts, I always guide everyone to the Streamline memo because it's a public memo on the May 2015 Commission agenda. I have it memorized because I refer to it so often. And I say, these are the guidelines for Streamline. And even in there with the bright line rules at the bottom in each section, it says in aggravation and mitigation, it can keep you out of Streamline if there's an intent to conceal, if we find some reason, or this your SEI non-disclosure caused a conflict. These are things that boot you out of Streamline. And they're factors that we consider. We also look to if the person is deceased. You know, that's something we take into consideration. So these are the things that we look at, but we do point people to the regulation, and the regulation as put into every exhibit is in section 18361.5. subdivision D, and we put it in every exhibit because it's what we consider. So we look at the seriousness of the violation, the presence or absence of intention to conceal, deceive, or mislead, whether the violation was deliberate, negligent, or inadvertent, whether the violation was isolated or part of a pattern, whether corrective amendments voluntarily were filed to provide full disclosure, and whether the violator has prior records of violation, and also if they reached out to the commission for advice. So we look at these in every single case, and that's how we weigh them.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that. I've read it in every single thing, so I think that's very helpful. Okay, I'm satisfied. You've answered my questions. Thanks very much.
Great, I'm glad.
Any other questions from the commissioners?
Just one question. Ms. West, if this had been in a default posture, there would have been potentially any number of additional accounts because of, I just want to make sure I'm clear on that though. So the failure to use a single designated campaign bank account could give rise to multiple counts based on each transaction, whether or not that would be appropriate or fair to proceed on, but that's basically how that would work. And we've ended up here based on the process. Is that right?
That's right. Also in settlement, it could have been the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners on item 3? Okay. Any public comment on item 3? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'd move approval of item 3.
Second.
Commissioner Adero,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. West. We are on item 22. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Remke and Commissioners Adero, Wynn, and Wasserman. My name is Matthew Christie, and I'm here on behalf of the Legal Division to present proposed amendments to Regulation 18940. This proposal would update the Commission's guide to its gift regulations by providing additional notice of the new disclosure requirements added to the Act in 2015 by the enactment of SB 21, which amended sections 87.207 and 89.506 of the Act. Section 87207 of the Act governs the disclosure of income by filers of statements of economic interests. Prior to the enactment of SB 21, Section 87207A4 required an SEI filer in the case of a gift to disclose on his or her SEI the amount of the gift and the date on which it was received. SB 21 amended 87207 to additionally require the SEI filer in the case of a gift which is a travel payment advance or reimbursement under Section 89506 to disclose the destination of the travel on his or her SEI. Section 89506 governs travel payments, advances, and reimbursements, and provides an exemption from the annual gift limit for travel payments, advances, or reimbursements that are reasonably related to a legislative or governmental purpose or to an issue of state, national, or international public policy. SB 21 added Section 89506 subdivision F, requiring certain nonprofit organizations that regularly organize and host travel for elected officials, and also that make travel payments, advances, and reimbursements totaling more than certain threshold figures for travel by an elected state officer or a local elected office holder to disclose the names of certain donors. These nonprofit organizations must disclose donors who both, one, donated $1,000 or more to the organization, and two, accompanied an elected state officer or local elected office holder for any portion of travel paid for by the travel advance reimbursement or travel payment advance or reimbursement, excuse me. If the commissioners have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I was just going to say, so now we'll know exactly who goes to Hawaii.
Correct.
Okay, I know. Question?
No, I mean, that first part of it, it just really seems like letting people know where people are going for the purpose of that's the
That's
Pardon me?
the law.
That's the law. I mean,
So I think our big goal here was just to remind people of the new law in our regulation on gifts, and then more importantly, to adopt the form that we're required to accept now.
Right. The one change has already been made to the statement of economic interest so that people now put the destination of their travel. And then this, we needed to adopt the new form because the first filing wouldn't be till April of next year on this, of these nonprofits. And the floor bill analysis said that some nonprofits, there's not a whole lot of nonprofits that are in this category that will be filing this form, but some that specifically fund
Two.
legislator travel might be they listed the California Foundation on the Environment and the Economy, California Independent Voter Project, Pacific Policy Research Foundation. So
Three. Okay.
there may be more.
Commissioner Wynn?
Yeah, thank you very much. I thought this set of regulations and the form accurately reflected SB 21, so I just wanted to congratulate you on that. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Odero, anything from you?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion? Oh, public comment, sorry. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move approval of this, both the form and the amendment to the regulations.
Second,
Commissioner Adero,
yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke.
Yes.
This motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And the ledge report is pretty straightforward and direct. Okay, but there is a quick question. So, Phil.
Thanks very much, Phil. Thank you for this report. It was kind of nice to see the wrap up. But I did notice that there was money associated with many of these bills that had been chaptered. And I've seen our budget, so I know we don't have this kind of money in our budget to, implement these kinds of changes. So I'm just wondering what the plan is.
Erin, do you want to handle that?
Yes, I'd love to. So as just for way of background, when the bills are going through the legislature, the different fiscal committees and the parts of the executive branch that are tracking fiscal always ask us for our fiscal estimates. So we do our best at that time to put accurate fiscals on the bills. as they're going through so that everyone has some information about how much our implementation costs would be. And so obviously, as you noted, the bills that were signed, a few of them have fiscal attached to them. So what we're doing right now is, and this just plays into the regular budget process, we're working with Department of Finance to figure out what would be acceptable to the administration in terms of getting additional positions or funding for the FPPC to implement these bills. And that process is ongoing. The governor's budget comes out in January, and at that time it will be public what the administration is at least recommending that the FPPC would receive for these bills. And then obviously we go through in the spring the budget process through the legislature, and then hopefully we get whatever positions at the end of all of that, and then we would get the funding July 1st.
But meanwhile, we'll be implementing it
Right.
January 1.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else for Phil on the ledge report? Thank you, Phil. And then then we're going to go into closed session. Okay, so we have to go into closed session on the Burgess matter. We'll go off the record and then we will be back. Thank you.
Tablet again. Thanks. I'm reading all your personal emails.
The Senate Bill 21. Track that during the session.
It was last session.
It was last session?
Yeah, 2015. You weren't here until.
Oh,
It was
well,
before
it
you
said
got.
it was your session.
Yeah, but it's like,
Well,
it's the first year of the session. You weren't here.
Okay.
So you're good.
I feel better about it.
Don't worry about
Juliet
that.
was gonna be like, why did you know about this? Cool. So is that, so that.
Well, I had a turn on the patterns. So Amazon, so that was audio.
Commissioner Adaro, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
great.
Okay, so we are back on the record, and I'm going to go ahead and report out from the closed session as follows. The commission has voted to let the September 15th, 2016 judgment stand in the Burgess matter and will timely file a return confirming the commission has vacated and set aside its decision in this matter and dismissed the administrative proceedings against Mr. Burgess. Okay, with that, we have one final matter, the executive staff reports. And do the commissioners have any questions or comments? Commissioner Wasserman.
Yes, I just wanted to comment. I really appreciate all of these reports. I think it's very helpful for us and for those of the public who are paying attention to see how much work is going on and how much, I assume in the next report, how much work is going to jump as we get closer to this election, which people are voting now. So let's see. I was going to ask about perhaps getting a budget update in December because we'll be 6 months into the fiscal budget. But I think we're going to have a lot in play with we'll be asking about anyway about trying to get money for these mandates that have now come down our way. So I'll just, I'm very flexible about what's going on and what we need to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, on the workload, I would just agree, and the staff's doing a great job with a lot to handle, a lot of extra projects, as I talked about earlier with the enforcement case management. Anything new like that is on top of the day-to-day work that has to get done and does continue to get done. So again, we really appreciate staff's overtime on all these issues and putting in the extra hours. And just as far as getting things done, I'd also point to the enforcement division's numbers on the $50 referral fee cases. You can come up. I'm just going to say good job is all, because as everyone knows, we got over 4,200 referrals in 2 years, and we are down to 462 to be processed. So that is a really, again, and that's on top of the day-to-day bread and butter cases that we get every day. So that's great work. I know you set up a really strong system on that will only help us with each referral in the future. So thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Odero? Anything from you?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, the rewrite is continuing
Oh, yes.
with the receiving comments from the public. And then did you want to update on the timing of the next meeting?
Okay, yeah, two things. Just to finish on that revision project, thank you, Hyla, which is another example of people working above and beyond here, and I think it's going really well. I'm very excited about it. The public comment period was extended, and it closes October 31st, so we'll get all those comments and then do a second round and then release that. The goal is December 5th. Again, still for a final release, which is more of a, this is where we're at, this is these are the comments we incorporated, and hopefully to be able to get everything to the legislature early in January 2017. But we'll be reporting back to the commission on that process, and the look of the report, we'll present it as an item in January, just so everyone sees where we're at on that. And then, what else?
Yeah, just for the November meeting, although we usually meet at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're going to be meeting at 1 o'clock on, which of course I cannot remember the date in November, but
17th.
Okay, November 17th at 1 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock, which will obviously be noticed, but just since that's a change.
Heads up. All right, with that, the staff report will be submitted, and I move to adjourn.
Commissioner Adaro,
Yes.
Commissioner Wasserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn,
Yes.
Chair Remke?
Yes.
This motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Odero, for participating.
Of course, no, thank you for all the help from the staff in making this happen here at this remote location.
Okay, thank you.